What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for December 6th, 2022. Big story out of Phillies land. Yesterday, they signed Trey Turner, the shortstop, to an 11-year, $300 million contract. Now, this is a huge get for them because since they lost Segura, it allows Stott to move over to second base. Turner's going to play shortstop. And once Harper comes back in May, June-ish or so, they should be a very dangerous lineup. I don't think they're done yet. I do think they're going to go out and get a starting pitcher or two, possibly some bullpen help. But this is a huge move, which I've mentioned a couple times on here. I always thought next year or this coming season, the 2023 season, was going to be the year for the Phillies to kind of put it all together. So now I think their window of opportunity to win a championship is wide open, and I think this contract shows that they're going for it. And I saw some people say, it's too long. It's the contract, because it has no opt-outs, it has a no trade clause, and he's basically going to be under contract until he's 40. But I do think what they're doing with these longer contracts is they're showing a commitment to these players with Harper and Turner and a lot like these big long contracts. But by doing it now, they don't really have a salary cap, but the luxury tax limit, it's just going to continue to grow. So I think by signing them long term, it might seem like a lot of money now, but in 5 years when he's definitely on the decline, it's not going to be as bad, and it's still going to allow you the flexibility each year to kind of add. So they're setting themselves up to kind of prop that window open for a couple years. So I love it. I think he's a perfect fit for this team. It's going to be huge for him, especially with Harper out. I think it's going to take some of the pressure off of those other guys. Maybe Schwarber doesn't have to hit leadoff anymore. Maybe it helps Rhys Hoskins out. Hopefully Castellanos is able to put whatever was bothering him last year behind. So it's a good time. I don't think they're done. There's definitely going to be some starting pitching help. And if you can get a third starter, and now Ranger Suarez is your fourth starter, and we talked so much during that World Series run about the Phillies winning the Ranger Suarez game. All of a sudden, you got a pretty dominant starting pitching unit, and we'll kind of go from there. And I mean, the Mets got better. Braves haven't done anything yet. So it's going to be a fun year. Hopefully this is a sign of bigger signings to come. But that was the big story coming out of Philly yesterday. Sixers lost to the Rockets in double OT, 132-123. JoJo had a decent game. Harden struggled somewhat in his return. I see him starting to get better. They're hovering around that 500 mark, and I don't even know why I haven't heard much about it. Maybe because I've been so focused on the Phillies run and the Eagles, but I don't understand why Doc is not on the hot seat. And I mentioned this back in the beginning of the season, but I'm seeing a lot of parallels between that Phillies team. Maybe it's time to shake things up a little bit, but we'll never know. And I don't know what Brand and everybody is thinking, but I don't know. At this point, I think you've kind of painted yourself into a corner, and they just keep pushing it back. So we'll see. But Flyers also shockingly won 5-3 over the Avalanche last night, which maybe because it was a long road trip for a West Coast team, but good win. They're going to win some. That's okay. Just don't want to make this too much of a habit. We want them to be tanking, and if you want to hear more about tanking, go check out the latest episode of Back to the Future from last week, where I discuss some of the pros and cons of tanking and sort of where I stand on it. Speaking of also of that, there is going to be a new episode coming later this week. Excuse me. So be on the lookout for that. Big 5 game tonight. Temple's playing St. Joe's. Currently, Temple is in the driver's seat for the Big 5 championship. All they need to do is win out since they've beat LaSalle, Nova. They still had games against Penn and the St. Joe's game tonight. So looking good, hopefully, for a Big 5 title for the Owls. So this day, we're going to stick with the St. Joe's theme and the Big 5 basketball theme. This day, December 6, 2003, the number 12 St. Joe's Hawk took on the Penn Quakers down at the Palestra. The Hawks won 67-59. Jameer Nelson had 23. Delonte West had 15. And if you remember, this is the team where St. Joe's got on a roll. They ended up going 27-0. They ended up going into the Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament as the number 1 team in the country. And in their quarterfinal match, they quickly got bounced by Xavier by 20, who Xavier did go on and get the at-large or the automatic bid for the A-10. They actually won it that year. Going into the tournament, though, the big question was, were they deserving of a number 1 seed? And everybody, very similar to what's happening or what happened last weekend with college football, where Alabama and Nick Saban leaves a party to get on to campaign for his team. Phil Martelli was like, yeah, we were 27-0. We won our conference. We lost the first round of the conference tournament. Yeah, but whoever you put in front of us, we beat. Now, they didn't have a great schedule, but they were 27-0. So they did get the number 1 seed in the East that year, rolled through to the regional final. They beat Liberty, Texas Tech, and Wake Forest. And then they had that incredible game against Oklahoma State where John Lucas hit a 3 with 7 seconds left or something, and then almost turned the ball over. I remember watching it, and the guy that passed it to him went to drive. The ball got knocked loose, and it was almost, like I said, a turnover and looking good for St. Joe's. But then Lucas hit the 3. Nelson came down and missed the, I guess it was like an 18-footer from the top of the key, and then St. Joe's lost. But absolutely the greatest team in St. Joe's basketball history, I would say. It was one of the few times, too, that as a Temple guy, I actually got behind this team, like against my better judgment, because back then St. Joe's was the bigger rival of Temple. And this was the end of the John Chaney era, sort of where he was, I don't know if it was this year or around the next year when it was Goongate, when he sent the guy in to just take his 5 fouls real quick. But this day, Philly sports history, back in 2003, St. Joe's, ranked number 12, went down to the Palestra, beat the Quakers 67-59, and we know what happened with that team. But big day for me. Yesterday was my birthday. I was able to celebrate and have fun, but since COVID, like a lot of people, I've kind of mentally, whatever, just kind of have had my issues. Kind of led to me, I've put on 35 pounds since the very beginning of the pandemic. So my goal for this year, I just turned 44, is to lose 45 pounds by the time I turn 45. So I'll give you periodic updates. Some of you might not care, but I don't know. This is my platform, so I'm going to talk about it. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, looking forward to it. Might do maybe a couple 5Ks. I know Upper Dublin has their triathlon, which I'm thinking about signing up for. I just saw an email today that it was open, but just looking forward to it. I feel like I'm back in a good mental spot again, and I know mental health is like one of those things that sometimes is taboo to talk about, and people might look at me like, oh, what do you have to be mentally? But like, it just was a tough kind of 2-year stretch, and never really talked too much about it. But like I said, a lot of stuff got to me between work and just the pandemic in general, having a wife who's a nurse, dealing with it every day, being at home with my kids for almost a year. Just all of those things kind of played into it. But through the help, to be completely honest, having this platform and both podcasts definitely helps. It's been very therapeutic. I feel good doing something I love every day, and hopefully you guys are getting enjoyment out of it. Based on whatever my Spotify things were coming back, I definitely have a lot of repeat users, so I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much. We're going to go on this journey. We're going to lose 45 pounds at least by this time next year. We're just going to continue to put out some good quality content. And again, I thank you for everything. Go have yourselves a Tuesday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.